I don't lie ever. That's one thing I don't do. So there's no supposedly about most of my friends being women. Mm, agreed. I mean, honestly, this idea that I'm a simp, either based on that discussion, I just about had a pretty vicious reaction to a discussion that took place between two feminists myself because I jumped in the middle and I was just aghast by what they were saying, which is, somebody said monogamy for women has been shaped by patriarchy and the idea that being chosen is where a woman's value lives. Women are told to wait to be desirable, but not too much to compete with other women and feel like you've won once a man commits to you. However, a lot of men are socialized to see monogamy as something they grant, while women to see why feeling entitled to access other women, they want a main woman who is loyal, emotionally available, sexually exclusive, and holding things down while they keep one foot out the door. They call that temptation, biology, or just how men are, but the expectation for you is to be disciplined and to forgive him. Or the capitalist logic creeps in again is that exclusivity grant increases your value as a woman, but access increases his status as a man. You're told to preserve yourself, but he is praised for how many women he can attract. Being chosen doesn't mean you're respected or even loved. It doesn't mean you're valued. It just means that he decided to have you under a patriarchy. That decisions matter more than whether you're actually being treated well by him. And then Jessica Lynn writes, men honestly believe they're meant to have multiple partners, even when they're married. They are all male species like that. Okay, Chad, well, a praying mantis bites the head off a male when done mating, but you don't see women going around doing that now, do you? And then I had oh yes, a bug's behavior can be generalized to humans. Ours is much closer to bonobos, left to our own devices, but let's go much further down the food chain, too. Or like, uh, initially I tried saying it was an insect. We do have, and then somebody said, Kayla, right back, we do have a lot in commons with bonobos, although bonobos have a prostitution economy, and that would not approve of puritanical values. And then I wrote back, I literally made fun of Jordan Peterson for this. He keeps insisting because lobsters have hierarchy, that humans' hierarchies are perfectly natural, which is just funny because it's like everything we know about biology is that different species have behave radically differently, and if humans were the closest to the monkeys, in fact, we split from them. So of course we have more in common with them than we do other types of species. In particular, bonobo's tendency to sleep around is largely our natural state. The part of my brain that commits to monogamy is the part that learned to live among others and with others, but deep down I know red in tooth and claw, my nature would be polyamorous, if not suppressed by society. So of course I see us as having more in common with bonobos. And then she writes, humans are not monogamous. Most people have had more than one single partner. We're not wolves or parrots. Apes simply do not mate for life, and as human species are of great apes. And I wrote back, zero disagreement. You know, we see most of my actual people. Women! This came up, and the only way that I could react to this one was, essentially, oh, YouTube's telling on itself. Women would be put in cages to sell to men. He literally, he comes straight out and says it. Like, just so you know, ladies, this is the quality of characters that are, ganging up on me right now. They'd put you in cages to sell to men. Who are we, for the most part, interacting with? Who am I, actually talking to for the most part on a day to day basis? It's not men. And based on the kinds of reactions I've gotten to my videos, that's not going to change. There's this idea that was put forward by somebody else on this channel that, if they had this much free time, they'd use it, to actually study something and, to better themselves. Only what makes you think I'm not? I've got a unit test to actually get. I actually got through the unit test, but now I have to go back in and review graphing. So, I'm actually using it to study something. What would you know? who gets interacted with. Who talks to me, you know? For the most part, you know? Like, one thing about me, like I said, is I don't lie, you know, for the most part. So, you know, there's no supposed about it. So, you know, who have I interacted with for like the last 2 years for the most part? While I've been, you know, off of YouTube, you know, talking with my, you know, people rather than you. You know, I've been happy with my friends to the point in which, you know, I realized at some point I was in love with having the friends that I had. You know, so, you know, algorithm can bite my ass. Yeah. Or very good Metapan. Dead last on education. But for one thing, no, that's annoying. Facebook. Serious question. Who do I interact with for the most part, based on what you can see? Who is it that I talk to on a daily basis across all the platforms, you know? Who? Precisely. Who are the ones liking my comments, you know? Thumbing them up and all that other shit, you know? Because it certainly isn't men. Ugh. You know, whether it's all poetry, whether it's similar worlds, whether it's, Facebook, for the most part, it's women I interact with. So, most of my friends, objectively, are in fact women. And, based on the scummy, asshole-ish type, responses that I'm getting today on my former video where all I said was that they didn't test on female crash test dummies, that is not going to change, In fact, I'm just going to push further into it because people are scummy. Men, folk, I mean, look at this. If I were in charge of civilization, women would be put in cages to sell to men. I mean, like, you retarded. Going 80 miles an hour and crash headfirst into something gossip going the other day, make regardless of whether or not this egg was designed and test with female crash test dummies. Like, most car accidents are not 80 miles per hour. Like, just for the most part, and I know by experience, it's usually slow collisions where there isn't that much damage and aren't that catastrophic. Things usually don't take place that goddamn fast. Those are horrific, but they're the minority of car accidents. But whatever, do go on about how supposedly, stupid I am. I've never had or felt much respect from YouTube about my innate intelligence ever. It's always been, you're stupid, because they think they know so much fucking better than me and that they're so much fucking smarter than me. And the thing is, it's just psychosis. They don't. I got comments to the effect of if I had all that free time, I would be studying something, which only leads to the question of what makes you think I'm not, Obviously, I'm 7% through the algebra course, so I am upskilling. And what would you know about anything? They talk about how their comments are shadow banned, but I'm about to go over to heavily moderated at this point with this crappy abuse. I don't care. I mean, like, people can think of what they want, in terms of how terrible this is and pussy-ish it is. You can judge away, I don't want the fucking abuse, man. In fact, you know what? I never lied to you. There's no supposed about it.